Dear younger me, these are some points that I wish I would have known before selling my home service business of 15 years. If I did know these things, I probably would have saved time, skipped out on the stress, and made more money in the transaction. So let's get into it. I put together a list of things that after coming out of a sale, I wish I would have known, and I want to go over them today with you and hopefully get you to the point where you can learn from my pain and my experience and use it as a way to propel yourself forward. So let's get into it. It's going to be kind of unscripted, off the cuff, and a little bit more conversational. So hopefully you're okay with that. The first thing I would say to anyone who's getting to this point is you obviously want to create a business that is worth something. And the way that you're best going to do that is you're going to have a ton of systems inside of your company. What we're going to do, if we have a business that's fully systematized, it's going to be attractive and appealing to the broadest number of potential buyers. And of course, if that's the case, then that's going to have a lifting effect on the price point. So that's what we want to strive for. The way we systematize things could vary between video trainings, checklists, handbooks. But the point here is what we want to strive for is that nothing is in your head, even something nominal or granular like how we order our inventory or our equipment. We really want that documented somewhere. And again, that's going to make a broader section of the market interested potentially in your business. And it's also going to make it seem a little bit more approachable, I would say. There's going to be a lot of people that don't have the knowledge or the experience that you have, but if they know they're going into a situation where everything is heavily documented, it's going to give them more confidence. And again, that's going to have a positive effect on the deal of selling your business. So action items today is strive to always create systems that can be operated by the people inside of your company. And sometimes that starts with just jotting things on a blank sheet of paper, or we get into a Google Doc or a Jot form or a Google form or what have you. We really want to try and extract as much from our brain and get it into a form that can be followed by anyone, including a potential buyer down the road. The next point that I would bring up is we want to start early. Don't wait too long. I always use the example, it's like a paratrooper who's jumped out of the plane too many times. You eventually get to a point where it's just bone on rock every time you hit the ground, and you do feel like your heart's just not in it anymore. I think that's common for professionals of any sort or business owners of any industry. And I was starting to experience that myself too. Again, I was 15 years in when I inevitably sold my own home service business. So the takeaway here is we don't want to wait too long, and we have to realize that there could be a final mountain that has to be climbed in order to fully see this project through. In my situation, I had 2 consecutive buyers lined up whom I knew. They were inside of my network. The first deal took 8 months and it eventually fizzled out and blew up. The second one, fortunately, did go through, but it still took 4 or 5 months, which totaled over a year. And again, that's in a situation of knowing the people and not having to list it on the marketplace or hire a broker and advertise the opportunity. So go into this knowing that it very reasonably could take you 12, 18, even 24 months. And what you don't want is to feel like you're totally depleted, you have nothing left to give, and you get to that point of desperation in order to make this deal go through because it's spending the last little bit of energy and heart and excitement that you have for your business. The next point I would bring up is you have to manage your expectations and your emotions. The parallel I like to draw on with buying and selling businesses is buying and selling real estate. So if you've ever done that before, you know all about the subject period and ultimately just how quickly things can change in a moment's notice. And that actually is what happened for me when it was time to sell my business. We had the first party in place. We had things getting drafted by the lawyers and the accountants were doing their due diligence. We were 8 months into this deal And over the course of a 4-minute phone call, they expressed that they got cold feet and they ultimately backed out. So I think the takeaway here is we always want to reserve our celebration. We want to manage our expectations and definitely keep our emotions in check, because ultimately anything can happen in a moment's notice until the deal is totally done. The next point I would bring up is kind of an extension off of the managing of your expectations and your emotions. And I would say for this one, I would say get money on the table as quickly as you can. And again, this is based on my experience, having lived through a deal that on the first attempt did in fact collapse. So looking back on that, what I would have said was, after say a month or maybe even 2 of due diligence, you don't have to be super aggressive with the timeline, but eventually we want to get to that point where there's a deposit that will be applied to the inevitable purchase price and it's no longer refundable. Now this could be something nominal like $5,000 or $10,000, or it could be extensive like 50 or 100K, similar to what you would see in a real estate transaction. The whole point here though is once those subjects are removed or they're not removed, you're not left feeling like you're flat-footed, wondering what the heck just happened, going right back to square zero. And I do think that there is a positive effect when somebody applies money. That's a step in the direction. There's momentum that's created. And ultimately, when that takes place, I'd say there's a greater likelihood that the deal will actually go through. And the final point that I'd like to bring up, having gone through a 7-figure exit of my own home service business, is you want to sell on the upswing. And I think this is worth noting because it's kind of contrary to how a lot of us entrepreneur type behave. When things are growing, progressing, and we're always looking at the 3, 6, 9 month outlook, sometimes we forget to consider that at some point things might start to level off or even potentially decline. And if that is the case, that could have a really negative and lasting effect on the project to sell your business. From the eyes of a potential purchaser, obviously they're looking for up and to the right. And if we can present that to them, then that's gonna look promising. It's gonna enhance the valuation. And ultimately, again, we're trying to create as much interest amongst the broadest number of potential purchaser possible. And that up and to the right with no slumps or no inconsistencies or no level off or no decline is going to do a great job of ensuring that you have a lot of people lining up to pay top dollar for your business. So again, sometimes this is counterproductive, it's counterintuitive. We think when times are good, we're just gonna keep operating it. But in actual fact, that might be the time that you truly want to consider listing your business and starting in on this process. So that is my guidance. I hope this brought you value. And again, this comes from the School of Hard Knocks. I lived this journey, and looking back on it, it went really well. But if I had this little bit of extra insight, such as anything in entrepreneurship, I think I would have been in a better position to navigate to a more successful deal. So hopefully this helps. If you liked it, if you hated it, send me a message. I'm here to help, and I love the conversation. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next week.